Well, now we got that reviews. Now I've got my review. Now, interesting enough, I'm actually quite surprised you. Not surprised. I'm actually quite e- excited that you picked that one, Jack, because I've got a comic book movie now.
Oh.
I've got Thor.
Ah.
Oh,
I got to see Thor. Now, I'm not the biggest comic book nerd, right? I'm not the biggest comic book. Thor was never one of the comic book heroes I ever really got interested in. Come on, I know everyone's into Nordic mythology and so on and so forth, but putting that as an actual superhero, I never generally thought it could work. So I never really got interested in the comic books.
He always seems like one of the more overpowered ones to me that I wouldn't really, because he's a god and all that. I was thinking maybe not.
Exactly, because he's a god. You don't think, well, it's like the Superman complex. Superman is pretty much a demigod on this planet. He's got one weakness, but he's a demigod. Same with Thor. He's got his weaknesses, but he's technically a god. So you're technically thinking to yourself, well, this is not gonna be very appealing. When I saw it as a comic book, then I decided to watch. Then I said, but you know what? The movie generally does look interesting. So I said, I'm gonna go and have a look. And I was thoroughly surprised. I genuinely loved this film. Now, I love this film in a similar vein as I think Jack will remember how much I liked the movie The Wolfman I reviewed a while ago.
Yeah.
Now, the reason why I liked Wolfman was because even though it's taking itself seriously, it's also got these levels of a level of campness, these levels of this kind of fun factor to it that knows it's fun and it's enjoying itself. And Thor definitely falls under this category. It's directed by Kenneth Branagh. Now, Kenneth Branagh, when people thought of him doing Thor, people were thinking, nah, it can't be because he's the Shakespeare guy. How the hell is he going to do a comic book movie? Turns out he's a humongous fan of the comic book Thor. In fact, that's one of the reasons why they picked him in the first place. So that's surprise, and he can do comedies. I mean, he has done the Shakespeare comedies, but he's also acted in several comedies. So he does know how to do
Oh no.
what?
Oh no.
what?
What?
You said comedies, and I went, oh, well, I want to see what Kenneth Branagh's film work was. And I've just seen. Do you remember last podcast?
Yeah.
Remember I mentioned a film that slightly made me break down?
Oh yeah. He was in that one, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. Yes.
Oh, I'm not going to mention Wild Wild West. Oh shit. But yeah, it's like, so at the end of the day, he knows how to do this. He knows how to do this big giant gravitas, these kind of big set pieces, but knows how to do it with a level of fun. The plot. Do I really need to elaborate on the plot? The plot is something incredibly simple. Basically, you got Chris Hemsworth who's playing Thor, and he's probably the best cast in this film. You could believe him as a Nordic god, and he's basically at the beginning he's a bit of a jerk. You know why? Because he's a god. When you're a good god, you can be either a nice god or a bit of a turd, and you know why he's a bit of a jerk, and because he accidentally lets off all these ice demons out, and so and confronts all the enemies that Asgard has been faced, and almost being cocky, like saying, "I am Thor, I can totally whoop all your butts," and then what happens is that then you got Odin, played by Anthony Hopkins, the perfect choice. Again, perfect choice, because this guy Anthony Hopkins has been playing a Nordic god for years.
He was
He really
born
has
a
been.
god.
He was born one. He's designed for this. He hams it up completely. And as Odin goes and says, Thor, my son, you have an absolute cock. So what we're going to do, you have to teach you a way. So I'm going to take you to another realm. I'm going to throw you to another realm, remove you of your powers. You've got to know the proper way of how to respect people. So what happens? They send him to Earth, and he crash lands in the middle of a field where he meets up with Natalie Portman, who ends up trying to figure out how to respect humankind, and so on and so forth. And it just becomes quite cheesy, becomes quite hammy. It falls a lot under the vein of a lot of time travel and like alternate universe movies, like Masters of the Universe kind of feel. It felt very much like Masters of the Universe, He-Man, Master of the Universe, the movie, and all these other ones where like I am a fantasy warlord, but I'm now suddenly in Middletown, California, and it plays it again for laughs. It's really, really funny. It plays it for laughs. It plays with a camp value, and it works amazingly well. All I can really say, it just works so well, and I left this quite giddy. I left it quite giddy, the same kind of giddy I did when I watched The Wolfman. Again, the same mind, and again, Anthony Hopkins in it. Maybe it is just the connection with Anthony Hopkins. Maybe it is the camp value of the whole thing. Maybe it is because it doesn't take itself seriously, but it feels so theatrical and huge, that it just was just awesome. So I do say though, the 3D is completely pointless in this because there's only a couple of scenes that were generally in 3D, and it couldn't work very well because most of the scenes that were in 3D were ironically in very dark scenes. So in other words, it's pointless. Don't watch it in 3D if you have the chance to. Just watch it on DVD and in 2D the way it should be.
I've heard that the fight scenes are a bit sort of crappy.
No, I generally liked them. Again, a lot of people had complaints with, let's say, with the first Iron Man movie, for example, that there wasn't enough fight sequences, or the big battle with, Robert Downey Jr. and Jeff Bridges wasn't climactic enough. But it was good. And this one here, again, the fight sequences are good. While I do admit it might not be entirely well choreographed or whatever it is, because I don't think Kenneth Branagh is much of a action hero guy, he does show it off quite well. I mean that, there's a lot. It does have good things about it, especially once Thor messes around with his hammer. When he finally gets the hammer and causes chaos and destruction, it just looks fun. And especially when you see him dressed up in regular clothing, fighting off this gigantic space robot. Come on, you've got a Nordic god versus a space robot. How can you mess that up? You can't mess that up.
That does sound pretty fun.
I know, right? It's just pure plain fun. Everything is awesome. The acting is top notch. The costumes are very interesting. The sets are fantastic. It's beautifully shot. It knows it's silly. And on top of that, a lot of these Marvel movies are trying to follow the whole continuity thing for the whole Avengers stuff. It does play with that, but it's not over bombarding like in Iron Man 2, where pretty much half the plot was just building up to the Avengers. This does bring it up, and it is actually a major plot point, but it isn't the most important thing in the movie. So, yeah, I would totally recommend you guys watch it. Take out your Nordic hammer and bang it to death, and definitely watch some brilliant Viking god action.